So are you ready for this one? This one's going to be a little bit more deep, I would say, to a certain degree. I want to talk a little bit about darkness and light, and the fight and the constant battle between those two. So let's get right into it. Okay, I don't know how many of you actually have noticed this, because a lot of you don't care. And when I say you don't care, I'm not talking about, if you've seen my previous video, I talked about the Odyssey and how wrong it is to mess around with other people's cultures. I don't mean the people that are purposefully doing it, which it's not really that they don't care. They care, but they just care about doing the wrong thing. I mean, how many of you actually don't care because you just haven't been informed, or it wasn't part of your focus because you had other things going on in your life, and so on and so forth? I don't know if a lot of you have noticed this, but there's been a war against the Greek culture and the Greek light for many, many years. Now, those of us that are Greek and Hellenic, to be precise, I've spoken very little bit on this before and said, just saying that it's the true wording is Hellenic. Just so you guys know, calling us Greek is the equivalent of the N-word. It was given to us when we were enslaved, and we had the Ottoman occupation. And it's a defining, it's a term. It's like the N-word. It's like the N-word for the Hellenes, and the whole world has been calling us that for years. Let that sink in. To the point that we don't even care anymore. Who gives a shit? Even we get mixed up most of the time. We just say, yeah, Greek, whatever. But just to set that straight as well, just so I can make you understand how far and how deep this goes, even calling us Greek constantly is actually calling us the equivalent, our equivalent of the N-word. Okay, you're calling us the N-word all the time. They have been trying to destroy the Greek spirit, the Hellenic spirit, for a very long time. And this is quite evident for all of those of us that are Greek. We know about this. All of us that are Hellenes, not just all of us that are Hellenes. Actually, I'll distinguish between the modern day Greeks and the people that hate Greeks, because we have a lot of them in Greece. We have a lot of them, and they're not, kind of like the woke people that you have in America, where they hate America. We have those people here. We have a lot of them, degenerates. And yeah, for me, those people are not Hellenic. So when I say Hellenic, I don't mean those people. I mean people with actual Hellenic spirit, soul, and ideals. That's what I mean. So all of us that are Hellenic, of Hellenic blood and soul, we have seen. Well, Hellenic soul is not the best way of putting it, but anyway, that's a deep dive for another time. We have experienced this and we have seen this for many years. There was a speech from Kissinger where he was actually talking about how you destroy the Greeks if you want to destroy the Greeks. I don't know if you guys know this, and I don't know anymore on the internet, like they just delete everything. There's so many records that have been deleted, so many things that it's so hard to find nowadays because they have AI controlling everything. They're trying to indoctrinate you constantly. We've been around though. I'm 42. I've been around for 40 fucking years. I wasn't born yesterday. And I know shit, I've seen videos, I've seen things, especially back when YouTube was more free. We've seen a lot of things. And a lot of things that unfortunately many of you might not be able to see or have access to, unless if we somehow are able to bring it back in one way or the other. So there was a speech with Kissinger, and he was talking about how you destroy the Greeks. And I ask you, who the fuck would make that speech? Those of you that know, you know. Those of you that don't know will be like, it's conspiracy shit. Have you searched for it? Like, because you haven't seen it, does that mean it doesn't exist? There are thousands upon thousands of us that have seen the video. And his reference at that point was how you destroy the Greeks, because you don't destroy them by killing them, you don't destroy them by doing this or doing that. The way you destroy the Greeks is by destroying their spirit and their soul. Now, there were some sources that cut it out a little bit, and what they were saying is, he was just talking about Greeks, and he was trying to say that, we're indomitable, and the reason why he said that was like that the only way that you destroy us is if you destroy our soul. That's one way of looking at it, but that's out of context, and that's people making shit up. But anyway, whatever the case may be. The fact of the matter is that you actually look at it and you're like, well, that's actually true. How do you destroy Greeks? You don't destroy them through war. You destroy them by destroying their soul and their heritage and their culture slowly. And it's been systematically happening for many, many years. Okay, and if you notice, even the best of films that come out when it comes to ancient Greece, they will change a lot of historical events, like Troy, which was one of the better things that we could have for, with regards to ancient Greece. And you can see that it was like, it was like it was completely changing events and so many things. Alexander the Great was practically showing him through the entire film as a failure, and they try to make up for that at the end with what's his name, Anthony Hopkins, saying, "Oh, failure. His failures are beyond all my successes." It's like you've spent the entire film kind of showing him as if he's a fucking madman failure and a feminine, putting from the rough guy. Which, by the way, sexual orientation has nothing to do with being feminine. We know in ancient Greece there were, not everyone, because there were certain times, periods, like for example in Athens, it was frowned upon. I don't know what kind of bullshit you guys are making up, but in Athens it was frowned upon. So it really depends where, when, and why. There was another city, I can't remember which city-state it was, or just the city, where the male soldiers were partners, and the reason why they had that system was that because they would be like, you would fight twice as hard to protect your partner and your loved one. So there were cases where it was accepted, and there were cases where it was not accepted. Just like, there was a lot of different things happening. At no point, however, did that mean that they are feminine. Don't get your shit twisted. Zack Snyder's 300 is probably the only film that really, truly does a good job of praising ancient Greece and the Greek and the Hellenic spirit quite masterfully. It has a lot of exaggeration and kind of like a mythical approach and feel to it. And I think that the reason why they let that pass by and they let it slip through is because he was saying, "Oh, it's based on a comic book." So they were like, "It's a comic book, so how much of the history can it get done? Can it get right?" And if you've noticed, ever since then, Zack Snyder has been the blacklist on Hollywood. And you know what that tells me? If you're blacklisted in Hollywood, like Mel Gibson, Zack Snyder, and so many other directors or actors, it means that you're not conformed to Hollywood's satanic darkness, which we've known for years. I haven't liked Hollywood, and I've known this shit has been happening for like 15, 20 years now and more. Some of you are now only recently waking up and finally realizing, holy shit, this has been happening and it wasn't conspiracy theories. So whenever you see someone that doesn't confine to those Satanists, they try to ruin their image and they try to force a narrative in a direction that actually gets people to hate that person, or they don't allow them to, like for example, the amount of fighting that Hollywood has done against Snyder is obvious and evident. Now there are a lot of haters as well, because guess what? There's a lot of people that hate Greece. Snyder's one of those people that loves ancient Greece, and it's pretty obvious. Even in Man of Steel, there's a lot of symbolisms in there. For example, one of the parts where Superman is reading a book, he's holding a book. If you pay attention, the book is Plato. There's a lot of things. IHOP, they fight at an IHOP. The IHOP, if you look at the P in Greek, it's R. And basically, when you look at it real quick, and you know Greek and English, it says Ichor, which is Ichor, which is the essence and the soul of the gods. And so there's a lot of symbolism. I can go on and on for Man of Steel as well. That's why they don't like Zack Snyder, okay? And one of those films slipped through the cracks, and they're like, holy shit, oh crap. If you pay attention to, though, aside from that, how many films do we have in ancient Greece that are good? Clash of the Titans is kind of okay. Modern films, the old ones are kind of like all over the place. And even Clash of the Titans, like the Kraken, it's not Greek mythology, it's made up shit that they made on the old 70s or 80s film, and they just stuck with it. The Kraken was not, like, it was different being, it was different. And again, mostly ruining to a certain degree, some of the historical elements, but not as much, because Clash of the Titans was a little bit older, but you can see that it wasn't a big production, it wasn't like a great epic. Troy was one of the better ones, and they ruined a lot of the history there. They completely ruined it, even though Achilles by Brad Pitt was, I think, was great. I really liked the way he portrayed him. 300 is probably the only film we have that does it all right. Isn't it suspect that if you just look at ancient Greek mythology, you could make at least 50 films. Everybody's all over this, all over the expanded universe and conjoined universes and, the Marvel cinematic universes and all this shit. They try to get the Beast universe, the Monsterverse, and the DCU, DCU, all they're trying to do all this extended universe so they can actually do big things. Like, and it's like you do realize you already have that with ancient Greek mythology. You realize that, right? You realize you can make at least 50 films on ancient Greek mythology, and you would still be able to make another that many. That's how much it's a gold mine. So isn't it suspect that you think to yourself, why haven't they done that? Justice League. Again, they ruined it so much and they cut so many shit out. The focus on the Amazons that Snyder had, the soul of the film, the focus on Cyborg, all those things. By the way, I want to make a small parenthesis because this is all stemming from the Odyssey, but it's something much, much deeper that I've been thinking about for a while that I want to make a video on, and this was the reason or the catalyst that got me to actually start going down this path of making certain videos. One of the things, I just want to say it by the way, was one of these people saying like, that fairness has been, and beauty has been kind of like, connected with white and all that stuff, and that's wrong, and that's racial systemic bullshit. I'm like, no, it hasn't. That's you proving that you're a racist because you're connecting fairness with beauty and being white. That's you being racist. Nobody said that, and the ancient Greeks didn't say that. We are basing our stories on Helen of Troy being an ancient Greek, and that's how the beauty was perceived, or whatever it was perceived. That's how we enjoyed it. And guess what? There's different tastes. If you go to a different country, they'll think that the standard of beauty there is something different compared to another country, and so on and so forth. It's really that simple. Now, if you understand this or not, I really don't care. It just shows and proves that you're the real racists. When you go into a culture and you race swap, why are you doing it? Like, you don't respect that culture, first of all, and then when people call you out on it, you start focusing on the fact that the reason why we have a problem with Lupita is because she's black. No, I don't have a problem with Lupita because she's black. I don't have a problem with Lupita at all. I have a problem with the fact that Helen of Troy is not black. It's completely different things. You see how they skew reality and they slowly. They are the true Trojan horses. They're trying to slowly infiltrate. Oh, you have a problem with her because she's black. No, I don't have a problem with her because she's black. I have a problem with her casting because Helen of Troy is not black. It's a completely different thing. But they try to skew reality. And they try to virtue signal and all that other bullshit. There has been a war on the light. Darkness and light have been in perpetual kind of like, struggle. And I would argue right in this moment that ancient Greece was the beacon of ancient civilizations and the beginning of Western civilization and whatnot. It was the beacon and the light that brought us into a new age. And it was so bright. Of course it had a lot of bad things, a lot of weird things. It had a lot of crazy shit happening and wars and, again, the duality that we have in the third dimension that we are actually experiencing. If anything, we kind of had like, the best of everything. We had, cults and mysticism, and we also had light and true symbolism of light. You just look into ancient Greek history. There's a lot there for you to actually unpack. There's a lot to unpack. The teratogenesis, like the monsters and all those stuff that they actually destroyed, what was and why, and there's a lot to unpack there. And I would argue that the biggest symbolism of ancient Greece, because aside from its humane or third dimension kind of like back drawings and the history itself and the goods and bads that are in it, besides all that, the shiniest, brightest part of it is actually the good parts. And that's what's hilarious, that no matter how many people are like, oh, they had slaves, which by the way, ancient Greece, Athens was the first place that was actually debating and contemplating on if slavery is right and if they should stop it. This was 2,500 years ago. Or over 2,000 years ago. Okay? We were already onto a lot of things at the time, believe me. So the biggest parts that came out of Greece that remain, and the strongest, like this, you have like a certain person that like a human being, we're not all perfect. I do 10 good things in my life and I do, 10 bad things. It's almost as if the good things are so good that people remember me for the good things and they say, yeah, he had a couple of, weaknesses as well, and these are the bad things that he done. That's what it's like. Not to mention that I would argue that the parable here is a little bit more with regards to me saying I've done 10 good things and 5 bad things. So generally, the biggest part of the symbolism of ancient Greece, ancient Hellas, and the ancient Hellenic period is that of light. Because again, there was wars, okay, and there was certain things like that happening. Okay, that's the bad side. All right, let's look at the good side. There's poetry, there was art, there was wisdom, there was philosophy, there was mathematics, there was science, there was building, there's architecture. Like there's a fucking million shit. If you look at the good side of all the things they've done, you're like, okay, yeah. So let's look at the bad side, and you look at the scale, you're like, yeah, they did do some bad things, but here are all the good things. You know what I'm saying? So it's mostly light. It's mostly that of light, and darkness hates light. Now, can we all be on the same page here and just understand that Hollywood is controlled by Satanists? Can we like be on board with this and understand this finally? And by extension, can a lot of you understand that a lot of the governments, especially the US governments, because they control a lot of things for many, many decades now, they are in allegiance with that same power, and that they are mostly Satanists. And it's not just Hollywood, but you are controlled, and the world is mostly controlled by Satanists. Can we finally, now that the Epstein files have come out and a big chunk of you has finally woken up, can we finally be on the same page on that? Okay, so if we're on the same page of that, how can you expect darkness and all the Satanists to allow the symbolism of light or the representation of light to come through untainted? One plus one equals two, guys. It's not far-fetched. Like a lot of you are like, oh, it's conspiracy theories and shit like that. Again, historically there has been a lot of events. I'm not going to go through that. You either know, you don't. I don't care. I'm giving you the results, and I'm giving you enough nuggets of logic and reasoning so you can see at this with a clearer eye and make your own damn mind up by thinking and being like, hold on a second. Yes, if someone is evil, would he want to represent the light? No. The answer is simple. No, he won't, or she won't, or whoever. They won't want to represent the light. If anything, they want to taint the light. The next part, which goes into ancient Greece, and you look at the last, like, I'm giving you enough things here, enough food for thought. A gold mine that Hollywood has never used, and every time they use it, they change things around and they represent them wrong. The one person that actually got through and wasn't did it right was Zack Snyder, and he's been blacklisted. You look at all this, and you're like, okay, could it possibly be that there's something more to all this than meets the eye? And now we have the whole Odyssey thing happening, and you're like, and it's not just the Odyssey, we have books like Black Athena and a whole bunch of other stuff. We have people saying that Greek culture is influenced by Egyptian and African Egyptian. Egyptians aren't black. Can we get the fuck off that subject? Egyptians are not black. Like, can we get off it? And I don't care what your grandmother said, but Cleopatra was not black. You don't care what schools say. Your grandma said Cleopatra is black. Well, I don't care what your grandma is saying. I don't know what your grandmommy is telling you. Cleopatra is Greek, okay? And she's not black. And even the skin of the Egyptians was something in between. It was more like Assyrian to a certain degree. Those were the Egyptians. They weren't black. Now, were there black people in Egypt? Of course. If I was black, I could just walk right into Egypt. Yes, there were black people there, and there were white people, and there was a lot of them. But Egyptians were not black. They weren't Ethiopians. They weren't like Ethiopians or Nigerians. You're slowly confusing history, and by extension, you're hijacking Egypt. And because there was a lot of influences, not a lot, some influences in ancient Greece from Egypt, some, a little bit in the Minoans, and to a certain degree, you're trying to slowly hijack Greek culture and say that it has black influences. No, it's the other way around. I'm sorry, but the Greek influences went more to Egypt. And those of you that don't know this, I think it was Solon when he was in Egypt, and it was like, we had before you a lot of the wisdom and a lot of the information that we're sharing with you now. We had it before the Greeks, but before us, you had passed it on to us before again. And I think that's more in reference to Minoan times. Possibly there are some hints towards Atlantis, and there's a whole other area that we'll go into in that area there, but that's okay. That one there is fringe kind of territory, so let's not talk about it. Let's just stick to the other topics that could be possible, more likely with actual facts that we have in our hands, because there's a lot of things that we do not have. There's a lot of information that has been lost, and there's been a lot of evidence that has been destroyed. And when you see certain texts and literatures and writings, for example, there's a certain part out of Plato that has been completely omitted and taken out of all the translations, where he's giving a complete description of the perfect city in Atlantis. Like, there's a part of it, there's a portion of it, and then there's an entire portion of it that's missing. You think to yourself, what the fuck was he saying in that part there? Why is it missing? Okay, there are things that have been done on purpose. There has been things that we have lost over time because of destructions and wars and, you know, catastrophes and whatever else. So don't be so sure that just because the things that you have right now access to, that's the final kind of, like, you know, it's the final picture. Now you can bring this back to me and say, well, then how can you be so sure that the Greeks, you know, weren't from African descent? Well, I can tell you this, because the things that I'm saying, the small details, is part of an entire picture of a puzzle that all connects, and there's little pieces here and there missing. What you're saying is something that comes and contradicts this entire picture, and this entire puzzle has millions and millions of references and all this historical data, and it's trying to contradict it. That's why, no. And as I've said many times before, truth unites, lies divide. If you have an entire piece of puzzle, if all those pieces are true, when you put it all together, it's going to unite it. That's what you do also in a courtroom. The courtroom analogy. You have witnesses. People see it on different angles, but because they're saying the truth, it all clicks in together into a bigger picture. If somebody's lying, it doesn't stick somewhere. Lies divide. Truth unites. Okay? So when you say a lie this big, and it comes and it contradicts hundreds, if not thousands of findings, something ain't right. What I'm saying, if anything, it adds to all those findings. It's just that we don't have enough evidence for it to actually be true or not, and it's kind of like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But it adds to all those things, and you're like, it's possible because the structure of all this allows it to be possible. The historical structure of all these findings. That's why when I say you don't have the final image, you can't say that back to me and be like, well, how do you know that the Greeks weren't African? Again, because the pieces that I'm saying, the missing pieces that we might not have evidence for, they fit with the rest of the picture. Your pieces don't. I'm trying my best to explain and describe these things slowly as I go through this video to actually reach a finalized point. So it can be a little bit more, so people can wrap their minds around this, give you enough examples, and take you slowly through it. They have been fighting Greek or the Hellenic spirit for a very long time. The reason why is because it is that of light. It shines so brightly that they're afraid of it, and that's why they've tried to destroy it for many years. That's why they don't represent it, and that's why every time they represent it, they completely skew shit. That's why they start saying things like, oh, they had misogyny and this and that. The respect that the ancient Greeks had to the female virgins when it went to, like, you know, all the the temples and all that stuff. If you so much as to look at them and touch them wrong, they'd cut your hand off, your dick off, and your fucking head off. That's how much respect. And it wasn't like, oh yeah, she's just a woman. So you're skewing a lot of shit. I'm not saying that there wasn't grape, and there wasn't, like, you know, there weren't grapes happening, and there wasn't a whole bunch of other evil, vile shit happening as well during wars, and, you know, so much, and sacking cities and what they would do. Yes, guess what? The rest of the world did that as well. Anyway, it's what I said before. How many bad things, how many good things? The bad acts and the wars and all that shit. Especially one of our biggest weaknesses in Hellenic history is the civil wars. The amount of killing that ancient Hellenes have done between each other. But I guess you could argue to a certain degree that nothing is by chance, and this conflict is like a melting pot of creation over time. I don't know. Trojans, for example, a lot of you don't understand. Oh, there were Assyrians and that, and people are like, oh, they were Greek guys, they were Hellenes. Like, get with the program. The Trojans were Hellenes. They were of Hellenic descent as well. They believed in Apollo. They had the temple of Apollo. You guys remember all these things? Again, most of you are not even informed. So how can you possibly come here and talk to me about Lupita being Helen of Troy? She's, as Metatron says, she's Helen of Congo. She's not Helen of Troy. So you see all these things and you're like, well, you know what? One and one is starting to kind of add up. Now, I'm going to talk about some of the events that have happened in Greece. I know people that have tried to create automotive industries in Greece, and they haven't been allowed, and the government has become an obstacle constantly for them, where they have the money, millions, to be able to make it work. They have the designs. I've known people that have, and we all know of certain people, like for example the Audi TT in 2000, when was it, that they had made, that was a Greek design. And some of the engines that Mercedes and Audi has were also designed by Greeks. Some of those designs were initially meant for the supposed automotive Greek, the Greek automotive industry that a lot of people tried to get up and running. Never happened. This is one example of many. And I ask you why. Over the 40 years that I've been living, the amount of stories that I've heard of Greek inventions, of Hellenic inventions that have been either swamped, hidden, or whatever else, or used elsewhere, it's a pretty big list. It's a pretty big list, which signifies and shows when people say, what have we done now? We've done a lot. We have done a lot. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean shit. And a lot of that, unfortunately, they do not allow us to actually invent it or have its base to exist in Greece. Because clearly it's going to start in creating infrastructure. It's clearly going to start to grow the societal infrastructure and the economy here. If anything, when we went into the EU, into Europe, we got limitation. Check this out. Our agriculture got limitation of how much we can export, which we didn't have that limitation before. But now, because we're part of the European Union, we need to abide by the laws, and they gave us a cap and say, hold on a second. Why aren't you taking advantage of Greek agriculture? The Mediterranean has some of the best food. Italy, Spain, Greece, we have some of the best food, guys. Like, if anything, you'd want to double it. If anything, you'd be like, now you're part of the EU, can we get better prices? And it's going to be easier for us to ship things back and forth. Of course they didn't do that, because if you do that, then you're creating bigger agricultural infrastructure in Greece again. No, they did the opposite. And I have friends and I've known people. I was in the army at the time, and I had a friend that had cotton fields in a lot of different areas, oranges, in different areas of Greece. I've been there, I've seen the information, and I've seen the fighting that has happened from both sides, from the agriculture trying to break free from all these stupid rules, and the government suppressing to create, in the end, a country that ultimately you're trying to make us poor and in control. We had a Formula One track that we were going to have. Do you have any idea how much money Formula One makes and how good that is for tourism? We've had tracks that we've been trying to build for years. Again, the government doesn't let it pass through. There's been so much that has been happening here. This is like just a couple of examples on top of my head. Once you put all this together, uranium composites up in Macedonia. That's one of the biggest reasons why they want to get Macedonia and sort of slowly break it away from Greece, so we don't take advantage of all the income that's going to come from there, because the infrastructure is going to grow from the uranium deposits in Macedonia, which is Greek, by the way. For those of you that are like, oh, what is he talking about Macedonia? Macedonia is Greek. Shut the fuck up. All right, so the amount of uranium deposits in Macedonia would make every single Greek in Greece fucking filthy rich if that money was shared, which obviously won't be shared. And obviously, even if they've done it now, it would just help in very specific rich people, obviously. But it would help with the infrastructure again of a country. Why aren't we mining those deposits? Why are they trying to make the Aegean, with regards to Turkey, the Aegean waters not belong to Greeks? Why? Because there's oil deposits there, and they want Turkey and other companies to come in from other countries and be like, yeah, we're taking the oil. There's so much of this happening. There's dozens upon dozens, if not hundreds, of situations and stories and things like this that are happening. And then you connect all these things together and you start realizing, why are they fucking attacking us so hard for? Like, why do you have such a big pole up your behind? Why do you have such a huge stick in your behind? And you can't just leave us alone? Well, because the ancient Hellenic spirit is that of light, and they are afraid of it. The British, when they helped us with the Ottoman Empire, which was the Filikieteria, it's the friendly or whatever, which were Zionists were behind it. The reason why they helped the ancient the Greeks at that point was about in the 1800s in the revolution against the Ottoman Empire, was because the whole Muslim thing and the Ottomans were going out of control, out of hand, and were like, you know what, we need to stop them. And they said that we're going to help Greece, but we're going to make sure that they're not going to control themselves anymore, because we can't allow them. These are quotes from specific, do your research, guys, and don't trust just the internet. There's a lot of things on the internet. The internet is an echo and a shadow of reality. This is the real world. There's a lot more here that hasn't been recorded on the internet. Anyway, the whole idea was that they didn't want the Greeks to have autonomy because they were afraid that they would rise again into the like an empire power of sorts, like in ancient Greek times, which we were never an empire. Like I guess Alexander the Great, but his point was never to create an empire. That's another whole different story for another thing. Again, his reasoning was much more of light, and there was things that were happening, and there was a liberation, and he had a purpose. Anyway, point being, they didn't want us to be autonomous. And ever since the Ottoman occupation, once we got the revolution, the Greek Revolution, the Hellenic Revolution, we've never really had control of our country. And it's evident by our government, it's evident by a lot of things. And now with the EU, the European Union, it got even worse, and so on and so forth. The amount of information all lines up. Now, could you end up saying that, you know what, I 100% believe this, just based on the information that you just said now, Jim? I'd be like, okay, you don't have to, because I haven't said much. I've just given you a very broad outline. It's understandable, and it's not enough. I believe it 100% because, again, like I've said, I've seen hundreds of stories for, well, I'm not going to say 42 years, because when I was young I didn't give a shit about this stuff, but from the age 10, 12 I was, interested. I kind of got ahead of my time when it came to analyzing certain things in politics and science and philosophy and religion, a whole bunch of stuff. By the age of 12 I was coming up with some wacky ideas already. Anyway, so let's just say for 30 years, I'm not going to say 42 years, for 30 years I've seen a lot. I can't jam all that shit up into small video and present it, and I can't even remember all of it at the same time. I can just give you the senses. Now, how much you believe that or not, that's up to you. I don't, and I don't really care. There's a lot of people out there that know this. Again, like I said at the beginning, those that know, they know. I believe that darkness fights light on a constant level, and it is our obligation, those of us of the light, to fight back. And how do you fight back? With awakening. The biggest thing Alexander the Great did was not war. He brought civilization to the east. That's the biggest thing he did. He brought light. It wasn't the war. The war was just the obstacle that he had to go through in order for them to shut up and listen. That was the obstacle. And of course those other things happened. He had to liberate a whole bunch of cities and blah blah blah, yes. His gift was civilization. That is the fight. And now we have access to the internet, we have access to using their own weapons against them by having connection with each other, and I can record this video and upload it, and someone in Zimbabwe can see it. Think about it. The moment I upload the video and I click upload and I publish it and it's uploaded, like however long it takes, the moment it uploads, somebody on the other side of the world in Hawaii on their tablet can click on the video and watch it. That's power. And that's why they're using all the social media, all the TikToks, all that stuff to train all these brains to not have conversations, to always be bombarded with a lot of information and blah blah blah. That's in my AI video, by the way. I'm going to upload that as well with regards to how they're trying to. Anyway, that's a completely different subject, and it goes into some of the dark plans that you could use AI for as well. Those of you that know me, I do use AI quite a bit, and I am very positive towards it. But again, I have some videos that I've made that I describe also the negatives and the positives, if it's used right and if it's used wrong, and also I deep dive into the dangers of AI if it's used wrong, what it can do. So once you look at all of this, and you're like, okay, so let's just say that they're fighting the light. Well, they don't really give a shit about Greece that much anymore, man, do they? Okay, so what, by extension, have they been fighting since then? Well, Christianity, that's light. You're not right, Jim, because they're fighting more of Christianity than they're fighting Greece. And it is true, because once they were able to get their plans working for Greece, it's like we don't need to bother with them anymore. What's the next thing we fear? The King of Kings, Christ. That's the next thing they fear. So it's like, okay, we're going to start small. We'll cut them off. Now we're going to go to the King of Kings. And that's where you see the biggest fight. And that's where you see them constantly being like almost as if, you know, it's almost as if they're being exercised on the spot when they see a cross. Why do they fear it? Why do they fear Christ? Because Christ is King. Plain and simple. And they can't do shit. That's why they fear it. And if people understand that, if people go to prayer, and if people turn to the light, there's nothing these demons can do. Which is the other possibility that I was thinking. There's a chance that all these things that are being revealed right now is because they're doing something here and they're showing us something else over here, so we can, you know, be like, hey, jiggling little keys like a little child, and on the back I'm, you know, I'm stealing stuff, or I'm doing something else over here, you know what I mean? So I'm like, here, check this out, Epstein files, aliens, and ooh, look at all these things here. And you're like, while you're looking at this, I'm like, okay, yeah, you check that out, and I'm like over here, okay, so I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna do that, okay, I'm gonna control that government, all right, okay. And then once I'm done, like, okay, I'm done. And then you snap back and you're like, hold on, was that like that? And then the gaslighting be like, yeah, it was always like that. Google it. And you go Google it, and like, okay, it was always like that, I guess. Because you're not awake, you're not paying attention. See how easy it happens? So there's a possibility that all these things that have been revealed is because they're trying to do something. But there's also the chance that prayer has, slowly, more people are praying, and it's time to break through, and the light is starting to shine. There's a very high probability of the second being true as well. Very high probability, because I've seen certain things the last year, and yeah, there's a very big probability. Let's just say that. So, Christianity is the biggest target right now. You could argue, you could say, well then, you know, they managed to do what they want to do with Greece, so they don't need to bother anymore. So now they focus on Christianity. But every now and then, let's throw some nuggets out there and misinformation and start ruining Greek culture even more. It's been constantly happening, it's just that it's less because their focus now is much more on Christianity. And here's the biggest problem in all this as well. The conflict and the division of light is something that they also orchestrated. The church started that when they started saying demons, the demonion, the demon, the demons. In ancient Greece were not demons. They were the equivalent of saints. And this is where we go now to the next part where I'm talking about the divide. Because a lot of people ask me, well, you like ancient Greece so much, but you also believe in Jesus Christ. How can both of those exist? Here's the image. Here's my answer to that. Can you see that? Do you see what this is? Do you see what this image is? Christ is King. And guess what? All those entities, all those things, they're all part of the light. United. And I think it's time that the light starts to unite. That sounded cheesy as fuck, but you get what I mean. Christianity and ancient Greece, they have such a big kind of like, connection with them, especially the Orthodox, Greek Orthodox kind of like religion. There's a lot of traditions and a lot of things have been pulled out of ancient Greece, and they have been kept into like into dates that we have for certain events and certain things that we do right now. There's a big connection there, and one of the biggest things that they tried to do was divide the light into two. So it's like, you can't believe in this, you have to believe in that. You can't believe in that, you have to believe in this, which goes into a lot of things. So the territory there, like, we can expand and really explore a lot of stuff. Like, for example, the demons that I said before. The other thing that I was that, for example, is that night. At the night time, the ancient Greeks believed that that was the moment where the fabric of creation was thinner, the muses would be more prominent, and it was the moment of spiritualization, philosophy, even love-making, and so on and so forth. The church changed that, and they said that the night is the darkness, and that's where the evil resides and all stuff, which, by the way, is backwards, because when you have a God that has created everything, it's like you're telling me that God created the darkness, which does not fucking exist. That's stupid shit. This indoctrination tried to actually stop people from being in those moments and being awake in those moments so they could actually expand and philosophize. They tried to cut off some of the traditions that the ancient Greeks had with regards to philosophizing and thinking, because it was all about indoctrination at that point and control. And you can be like, holy shit, all these things about the church that you're saying. So how can you believe in Jesus Christ? Because the church is not Jesus Christ. And there are a lot of good things in the church as well, because it is based on the words of Jesus Christ. When Jesus Christ came down, he said it, I'm not here to create religions. Clearly, we had other ideas in mind as humans. We created the religions. Christ didn't make the religion, he just showed us the way of what the example is. And here's the next part that I'm going to talk to you about. You're telling me that the light and the creation and all those things that Jesus Christ was saying, which existed, and he created everything, and God created everything with all this light. You're telling me all that started existing after Jesus Christ was born? How is that possible? When Jesus Christ himself is telling us that we are all of this light and all that stuff, and God has created everything. Which means it pro-existed. Now the fact that Christ was king and he was the pinnacle of all that, what we were supposed to learn, what we were supposed to gain and understand from the light, and I can go into a whole other video just talking about Christ, does not detract from the fact that before that there were still beings that were of light, and they were bringing the light to planet Earth. And I would argue that they brought planet Earth to a certain frequency slowly through that light, so Earth could be ready for Jesus Christ to be born. And who did that? Put two and two together, guys. Put two and two together. You put ancient Greece and you put Christ as well together. Obviously I'm not saying Christ was ancient Greek. The light is the light. It doesn't have a name. It doesn't have to be ancient Greek. It doesn't have to be Italian. It doesn't have to be Roman. It doesn't have to be black. Light is light. The fact that we expressed it is, again, it's a whole different other conversation of why, but we expressed something that already exists. We didn't create the light. And that's why a lot of people are getting angry over, when we talk about ancient Greece. I never said we created the light. The light exists. If you blow up the entire planet right now and kill everybody and leave two people and they reproduce, and in 10,000 years we have a new civilization, they will stumble over the light again, and it will be called something completely different. We won't have Greeks, we won't have all these races and nations and all this stuff. We'll have a completely different history, and the light will still, because it exists, we'll still find our way to it, because the light exists. Simple. The fact that we found it and we tapped into it, or we allowed it to express itself through us in our history, does not mean that we birthed it. Don't confuse the two. That's why all these things are connected. And divide and conquer is their game. So they divide ancient Greece and the ancient Greek and the ancient Hellenic kind of like symbolisms and all that stuff, which were, again, a lot of that of the light. They broke it away from Christ, and they tried to, having them weakened, attack each one separately and reduce it. They've managed it with ancient Greece and the ancient Hellenic spirit. Their biggest target now is Christianity and Christ. It's a much harder target because we are much less, whereas Christianity and Christians on this planet Earth are many, many more, whether it be for dogmatic reasons, because there are a lot of Christians that are just dogmatic, whether it be because they truly believe, or whatever the case may be. It's a much larger group to take down, so it's much harder for them, so they put more focus over there, and it is, again, their biggest threat, because, like I said before, Christ is king. Unite. It's time that we stop with all these little divisions, and it's time that all people of the light should come together and, again, it's rhyming, and unite. Again, that's the key. That's the essence. So, a conclusion to tie it up to my previous video, which is with regards to the Odyssey. Why are they ruining ancient Greek history? Well, now you get your answer. Why are they trying to create all these wrong symbolisms? Now you have your answer. Why are they trying to constantly create division between male and female and make it look as if we hate females? Like, how can you say that? How can you say that males are misogynistic and all that stuff when, like, 90% of the males on the planet Earth, their whole purpose is to find a female and mate and be with them and cherish and love them for the rest of their life? It's like, are you fucking dumb? See how all these perspectives are skewed? Because that's what darkness does. It tries to divide everywhere, divide and conquer, divide the religions, divide the light, divide the people, divide people with regards to cultural beliefs, divide them with regards to history, divide them with regards to political beliefs, divide them among their own selves. You're female and you're male. Division everywhere, division. And just slowly give you more and more reasons for you to be constantly arguing and fighting each other. Because if we're fighting each other, we're not fighting them. Brothers, sisters, everyone of sane soul and reasoning, we need to unite. Like I said, if we're fighting each other, we're not fighting them, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to divide us in every single possible way. And that's one of the things that I wanted to say before when I was saying they're trying to, in the previous video, they're trying to interject their own opinions and their own ideas into ancient Greek history, into culture, into science, into everything, into science. Have you seen what's happened with all the gender, blockers and all the puberty blockers and all that stuff now it's considered a crime. Those of us that knew about this, we knew all along that this is wrong, and we spoke up, but nobody would listen, right? People should be put in jail for that. That's a crime. Those are crimes. The things that they've done to all those kids, those are crimes. And they hide it behind, like, it's a war on science as well. It's like, it's the science. What science? What science? Any person with half a brain knows that this shit is bullshit. They're trying to create division everywhere. Even in the science field, people are like, I'm of science, I don't believe this. And then the other people that are completely batshit crazy, but this is science. They're trying to create division everywhere. They're trying to indoctrinate and slowly defile. Now, where this is going to lead, I don't know. There is a chance that they're trying to give us the bad or the worst case scenario. So as they give us the worst case scenario and push towards it and make it evident, they come with a savior of their own and be like, okay, he's going to be back to what we used to be. So, we're back to being normal. And you think everything is great and everything is normal, but we're still in control. You haven't really gained anything all this time, but we have. Like all those Satanists, they have gained because you push, and then you bring a savior, like, okay, let's go back to where we were, because everyone's like, it was great back then. It wasn't great. There was still shit happening. But compared to what's happening now, you're like, okay, something has to change. And then they bring you their savior ready to supposedly bring us back to normal times. And I think that is what the Great Reset is. Just to touch onto another topic and subject as well. The Great Reset that they keep saying, they're going to reset everything. I don't think it's a reset on humanity. I think it's a reset on how we perceive these dark powers, and reach the point where everybody's going to believe, so all this time we were controlled by the dark guys, we got rid of them now. We got rid of them, we're done. Okay, cool. We're new beginning, new start, now we are, we're clean. And it's a reset for them. It buys them more time as they can continue behind the lines, behind the scenes, to control. And now this time, on this new reset, now they have AI. Think about what that means. So it's even more dangerous this time around if we let it happen. And so I believe that is what they mean when they say the Great Reset, that they're trying to focus on. They're trying to push so hard and so far and so obscure, like it's so crazy, the level of things that they're going towards, that when they go back to normal times, everybody's going to be praising them, whoever does that. It's like they're just going back to what was already. We're just like, where we were irrational and crazy, now we're just talking reason and logic again. It doesn't necessarily mean we are in the light. You know what I mean? It just makes the whole situation again one of those situations where now they have another 50, 60, 100 years for them to do whatever the fuck they want. And they've done this in a lot of nations in the past in history, and history repeats itself. And if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat yourself. A lot of the revelations in France and in other places as well. Look it up. Look it up. The whole point of this video was to reach the conclusion of why we see so much attacking towards the light, and to identify it. Why? Because once you identify something, it's happening, you start to reveal it for what it is, and they can't control you and bullshit you anymore. And if we all get aligned with being awakened and understanding and seeing in front of what's happening, Either they need to change tactics, or they need to drop the tactics that they're doing on something specific, because it just doesn't work anymore. And that's how you slowly fight back. Okay? Darkness is going to constantly try to destroy the light. And I truly believe that the ancient Hellenes are that of the light, and the continuation of that through that, and the pinnacle of all that, again, like I said before, the King of Kings, is that of Christ. And they have tried to divide everything that is within the light and attack it separately so they can slowly diminish it. My message, if there was one in all this, because it's just, expressing these ideas and these opinions and trying to get people, I guess, to a certain degree to look at things a little bit different so they're more aware. But if there was a message in all of this, it's wake up, guys. Wake up and unite. We are stronger together. And being stronger together within the brightness, within the light itself, we're unstoppable. And that's what they fear. That's why they attack the light. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was, again, something that I've been on my mind for a while now to actually talk about. There's other videos of this as well, but I think this was the one that was the most dominant right now with regards to my thought process. The idea that was at the furthest front line, let's just say, with regards to the things that I want to talk about, that I wanted to make a video on. I hope it helped you in some way to perhaps see certain things in a certain way. And again, at the end of the day, it doesn't even really matter. Like, substitute ancient Greece or ancient Hellas with anything. It could have been anything. And substitute with whatever you want. If you notice, the darkness, or whatever there's light, it tries to attack it, diminish it, change it, alter it, infiltrate it, do all that shit. And once you're able to realize this, then you'll also be able to kind of create a conclusion of certain things. Like, for example, Zack Snyder or Mel Gibson. When I saw the attacking that Hollywood was doing to them, and how much, not so much on Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder was more like an outsider, and they had, hit piece articles and all. He doesn't know how to write stories, which, by the way, I can make a whole video on Zack Snyder at some point. I probably should. I want to really dive into that at some point as well and explain certain things with regards to that whole situation. Once I'm seeing those things, I'm like, okay, that helps me. Because I know who they are and what they're doing and how they work. It makes you realize, okay, they don't like this guy. Okay, they don't like Zack Snyder. That means I gotta pay attention. I gotta see, maybe he's someone that I should like. And guess what? I do like Zack Snyder's work. I mean, he has some films that I'm like, it was alright. But some of his better works, I'm like, that shit is like, it's one of a kind. Truly. Mel Gibson, pay attention. You're like, why are they attacking him? What did he say? And once you realize how they work, these things become much clearer to you, and then you start seeing the people that they're attacking, and you're like, okay, I gotta pay attention to this person. If Hollywood is against that person, they're saying something that I need to listen to. They're saying something that I need to pay attention to. So use that in every case, not just for Hollywood, in all things around you, and try to be aware. Your social media, your news outlets, your TikToks, and all that stuff, all the trends, they're all trying to brainwash you a lot of times into believing a certain narrative, and to just go along with it. Fight the narratives. Stay awake. Be vigilant. And above all else, peace be with you.